Welcome back to part 4 of our Definitions of Worship series. As a reminder, we're going through Justin Taylor's 6 definitions that he posted in a blog post on the Gospel Coalition website. Today, we're looking at Bruce Leafblad's definition. So Leafblad was a long-time educator of worship and church music. He worked at Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary. He also co-authored a book. The book was titled Experiencing God in Worship, Perspectives on the Future of Worship in the Church from Today's Most Prominent Leaders. So this book had a bunch of leaders write different chapters in it, and Leafblad wrote one of those chapters. Here's Leafblad's definition of worship. Worship is communion with God in which believers, by grace, center their mind's attention and their heart's affection on the Lord, humbly glorifying God in response to His greatness and His word. So let's break this down. Communion with God. So communion is sharing intimate thoughts or feelings. And then who are we doing that with? We're doing that with God. So worship is communion with God. So it's this sharing of intimacy with God. Now, the God that we're talking about here is God the Creator, God from the Bible, God the Sovereign, as we've heard it in other places. By grace. I like the way the Bible Project describes this or talks about grace. Giving goodness to another out of love, not because one deserves it, right? So why are we able to have communion with God? We're able to have communion with God by grace, not because we deserve it, but because God, through His love, is going to give that to us, that opportunity to us. The mind's attention and the heart's affection. So now this is an interesting aspect of Leafblad's definition because we get two aspects of this. So it's kind of a multifaceted idea, not only in the mind, but we're also going to come from heart, right? So mind and emotion in this situation, which is an interesting component of his definition. Humbly glorifying God. So we're going to honor, praise, admire, right? So that's glorify. We're going to honor, praise, and admire, but we're going to do it without arrogance and pride, right? So we're not going to do this. We're going to do it humbly. That's why how we're going to do this. And then we see this again, this idea of response. So we've seen response in a lot of the definitions so far, well, really all of them, whether they've used the word response or not. We've seen response in all the definitions so far, so it's interesting to see how it aligns as well. And then His greatness and His word, right? So the cause of our response is His greatness. The cause of our response is His word. The cause of our worship is His greatness and His word. So if we start to look at this, we can kind of throw these into a table, right, which we haven't done until now, but for the next few videos in the series, right, we're going to actually throw these into a table. We look at Best's, we look at Gibson's, we look at Block's, we look at Leafblad's definition, and we can kind of start to categorize these. So worship is an outpouring, a response, communion as a response, right? So if we think about these, all of the definitions are in common, right, in terms of it's this response idea, right? And then some of them will tweak the way they talk about response. So outpouring, or in Leafblad's example, communion as a response. Then the definition is focused on. So Best's definition was the most different up until now, right? Where it was focused on the I. Gibson was focused on He, meaning God. Block was focused on His, meaning God. Leafblad is focused on a little bit of both of these, right? So he talks about the believer, and then he talks about His, right? So he talks about both the person doing the worship and the thing that they're worshiping, or the person that they're worshiping. And then the object of our worship, right? In Best's definition, it was broad gods, right? So it was open to broad gods. That could be little g gods or big G God. Everyone else has been God of the Bible, God sovereign, God and Lord. So in the next video in this series, we're going to look at John Piper's definition. John Piper breaks his definition into this idea of inner essence and then outward expression. I hope you'll join me as we look at Piper's definition. If you liked this video, if you learned something, please consider liking it, subscribing, sharing it with somebody. I'm going to be making a lot more videos around the idea of faith and technology and around the idea of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, and this idea of Christian worship and how these two things come together. So if you're interested, I'd appreciate it if you'd support the channel and support the video series. If you want to find me on social media, you can find me on almost all of the platforms as Dr. C.A. Hickson. It was good talking to you, and hopefully I'll see you next time.